are you?
We're tired,
We're exhausted.
but we're reading tonight.
Hey guys, I voted. Hi Angie. So tonight we are reading one of my favorite stories by Edgar Allan Poe, and I totally got white in my eyebrows earlier. So there's that. Whatevs. So I was gonna do the Mask of the Red Death, but I thought it might be easier to see if we could do the oval portrait. That is, for some reason, has always been one of my all-time favorites of Poe. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Hello.
I figure I should say hello, Angie. Hello, Katie. Love the hair. I'm a little partial to crazy colors.
I'm just sharing out real fast.
Frank's sharing. So I'll get started and let's see how far I can get with some of these stories. Okay, guys? So, the oval portrait. He has great stories like the Black Cat. I know, right? I don't know why though. The oval portrait has always been. Well, I'll tell you why. It's that last line. It's just so awesome. So here we go. The chateau into which my valet had ventured to make forcible entrance, rather than permit me, in my desperately wounded condition, to pass a night in the open air, was one of the piles of calm, calming lead gloom and grandeur which have long frowned among the Apennines, not less, in fact, than in the fancy of Mrs. Radcliffe. To all appearance, it had been temporarily and very lately abandoned. We established ourselves in one of the smallest and least sumptuously furnished apartments. It lay in a remote turret of the building. Its decorations were rich, yet tattered and antique. Its walls were hung with tapestry and batik with manifold and multiform armorial trophies, together with an unusual great number of very spirited modern paintings in frames of rich golden arabesque.
I was just seeing what was that.
Oh, in these paintings, which depended from the walls not only in their main surfaces, but in very many nooks which the bizarre architecture of the chateau rendered necessary. In these paintings, my incipient delirium perhaps had caused me to take deep interest, so that I bade Pedro to close the heavy shutters of the room. Since it was already night, to light the tongues of a tall candelabrum, which stood by the head of my bed, and to throw open far the wide fringed curtains of black velvet which enveloped the bed itself. I wished at I wished all this done, that I might resign myself, if not to sleep, at least alternately to the contemplation of these pictures, and the perusal of a small volume of which had been found upon the pillow, and which purported to criticize and describe them. Long, long I read, and devoutly I gazed. Rapidly and gloriously the hours flew by, and the deep midnight came. The position of the candelabrum displeased me, and outreached my hand with difficulty rather than disturb my slumbering valet. I placed it so as to throw its rays more fully upon the book. But the action produced an effect altogether unanticipated. The rays of the numerous candles, for there were many, now fell within the niche of the room, with or, which had hitherto been thrown into deep shade by one of the bedposts. I thus saw in vivid light a picture a picture all unnoticed before. It was the portrait of a young girl just ripening into womanhood. I glanced at the painting hurriedly and then closed my eyes. Why I did this was not at first apparent to my own perception, but while my lids remained thus shut, I ran over in my mind my reason for shutting them. It was an impulsive movement to gain time for thought, to make sure that my vision had not deceived me, to calm and subdue my fancy for a more sober and more certain gaze. In a very few moments I again looked fixedly at the painting, and that I now saw aright I could not, yeah, I could not and would not doubt, for the first flashing of the candle upon the canvas had seemed to dissipate the dreamy stupor which was stealing over my sense, and to startle me at once into waking life. I was actually going to do the Pit and the Pendulum, and then I was going to do the Mask of the Red Death, and I decided to do this one. So, the portrait, I have already said, was that of a young girl. It was a mere head and shoulders, done in what was technically termed a vignette manner, much in the style of the favorite heads of Sully. The arms and the bosom, even the ends of the radiant hair, melted imperceptibly into the vague yet deep shadow which formed the background of the whole. The frame was oval, richly gilded, and filigreed in Moresque. As a thing of art, nothing could be more admirable than the painting itself, but it could have been neither the execution of the work nor the immortal beauty of the countenance, which had so suddenly and so vehemently moved me. Least of all could it have been that my fancy, shaken from its half slumber, had mistaken the head for that of a living person. Hello.
Hi, Sykes.
I saw at once that the peculiarities, God, I can't say that, peculiarities of the design of the vignette and of the frame must have instantly dispelled such idea, must have prevented even its momentary entertainment. Thinking earnestly upon these points, I remained for an hour, perhaps, half sitting, half reclining,
Natalie!
with my vision riveted upon the portrait. Hello.
Hello.
At length, satisfied with the true secret of its effect, I fell back within the bed. I had found the spell of the picture in an absolute lifelikeness of expression, which at first startling, finally confounded, subdued, and appalled me. With deep and reverent awe, I replaced the candelabrum in its former position. The cause of my deep agitation began thus shut from view. I sought eagerly the volume which discussed the painting and their histories. Turning to the number which designed the oval portrait, I there read a vague and quaint words which follow. She was a maiden of rarest beauty, and not more lovely than full of glee. And evil was the hour when she saw and loved and wedded the painter. He, passionate, studious, austere, and having already a bride in his art; she, a maiden of the rarest beauty, and not more lovely than full of glee, all light and smiles, and frolicsome as the young fawn, loving and cherishing all things, hating only the art which was her rival, dreading only the palette and brushes and other untoward instruments which deprived her of the countenance of her lover. It was thus a terrible thing for this lady to hear the painter speak of his desire to portray even his young bride, but she was humble and obedient, and sat meekly for weeks in the dark high turret chamber in the dark high turret chamber, where the light dripped upon the pale canvas only from overhead. But he, the painter, took glory in his work, which went on from hour to hour and from day to day, and he was passionate and wild and moody man, who became lost in reveries, so that he would not see that the light which fell so ghastly in the lone turret withered the health and the spirits of his bride, who pined visibly to all but him. Yet she smiled on and still on, uncomplaining, because she saw that the painter, who had high renown, took a fervid and burning pleasure in his task, and wrought day and night to depict her who so loved him, yet grew daily more desperate and weak, dispirited and weak. And in sooth, some who beheld the portrait spoke of its resemblance low in words, of a mighty marvel, and a proof not less of the power of the painter than his deep love for her whom he depicted so surpassingly well. But at length, as the labor drew nearer to its conclusion, there was admitted none into the turret, for the painter had grown wild with the ardor of his work, and the and turned his eyes from canvas rarely, even to regard the countenance of his wife, and he would not see that the tints which he spread upon the canvas were drawn from the cheeks of her who sat beside him. And when many weeks had passed, but little remained to do, save one brush upon the mouth and one tint upon the eye, the spirit of the lady flickered again, or again flickered up as the flame within the socket of the lamp, and then the brush was given, and the tint was placed, and for one moment the painter stood entranced before the work which he had wrought. But in the next, while yet gazed, he grew tumultuous, and pallid, and aghast, and crying with a loud voice, "This is indeed life itself!" turned suddenly to regard his beloved, and she was dead.
I have chocolate pecan porter, Sykes. I'm right here now.
That was like my favorite part of the entire.
I listened. It was awesome.
I know, but like
I'm sorry.
that was like my favorite part.
He was so engrossed in the painting,
Like I just was with my book.
wasn't paying attention to the outside world, that his beloved died of tuberculosis.
No.
Basically, that's what she died of, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, no, actually, she sat there at his behest and never moved once.
Yeah.
Do you think I have time?
Plenty of time.
Holy shit! I read that fast, didn't
There's no one else. I don't think there's anybody. There's no one coming on tonight. We were busy last night, so
I? This book's a little heavy.
with our anniversary and all this other stuff.
Well, kind of.
Yeah.
I fell asleep.
I fell asleep.
I wasn't feeling that great.
Yeah.
I kind of fucked up my neck.
Yeah. And the reason why we were late tonight was because.
I got Flexeril.
Yeah. Hey, Carl.
Should I cheer you up with another tiny joke? Yes. I don't know why you decided. I decided you were British suddenly.
We went to
Carl.
we went to go vote, and because of the whole COVID thing, the lines were like out the door. So, but luckily we saw the drop-off box for the cars, and we just walked over there and was like, "Here you go." My wife has big boobs.
Frank, my wife has big boobs. Okay, okay, awkward, but I'll go along. How big are they? They're huge.
They're huge. Now at least she got muscle relaxers.
They gave me Flexeril.
Yeah.
Which Poe book is this? It
The
is
Po' Boy book.
literally
It's a
his
Po' Boy.
complete works, including all the
Did I
poems
buy
he
that
ever. No, I bought this one.
Which one did I buy? I bought you the Cthulhu one.
You bought me the two different Lovecraft ones, and the funny part was I already owned one of them.
Yeah.
But I was okay with it because I love that book.
Excuse me.
So, which one is shorter?
Just keep reading. We got plenty of.
Oh, I don't think we have time for that one.
I mean, honestly, as soon as we're done here, I'm playing Skyrim. And,
Same.
And yeah.
Why did my brain go, I'm just a po' boy, nobody loves me?
Haha.
No pun intended.
Yes,
Yay, for muscle relaxers. Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm waiting to be able to move my neck properly.
Should they gave her anti-inflammatories,
They wanted to give me a shot of tramadol in my neck,
which we didn't have time for tonight. Well,
which I didn't have the patience or
yeah.
willingness to do.
Liz is afraid of needles.
I hate syringes. Yet I can do acupuncture, no problem. Okay, so I have a fun one for you guys. I know this is a few of your favorites. A few.
It's a feud of your favorites.
I didn't say feud.
Sorry. Carl, can you translate?
I couldn't speak Swedish if I tried.
Here I have a feud of your favorites.
I did not say feud.
I know, but I'm saying it. It comes out right. Carl, is that accurate? Am I saying it properly? I had a feud of your favorites. Over in the theater.
Remember, he said that the Norse speak more like the Swedish chef than they do.
I know. They have a Ford Fiesta.
I heard gurgle, gurgle, snuggle.
Gurgle, gurgle, snuggle. Hurdy, hurdy, hurdy. I don't hear the Nords though.
I just laugh. Let me guess. Somebody stole your sweet roll.
I play a Nord on Skyrim, so.
I play a Breton.
I play a female Nord.
He just likes to stare at her ass.
It's not that. I just prefer to play. I prefer to play female characters in video games. I don't know why.
Because
they always seem cooler.
You get to look at them.
I don't know. Hi, Andy. Now this is hi, Carl.
All right, guys. So here's another one of my all-time favorites, and they happen to be one right after the other. Okay, the difference between Swedes and Norwegians are they have oil and are still. We don't have oil. We're just a little stupid.
Carl? Norway's number one export for a long time to America besides oil was black metal.
And we're both wearing, well, I'm wearing a black metal shirt.
I'm just wearing a metal shirt.
And he's wearing a black and death metal shirt.
I'm exhausted. I didn't even do
my... to be my book holder, but I can't do that to you. I can't do that to you. The Mask of the Red Death. I rest my case. I don't know. Girl, you're awesome.
Who was it? Was it Shell? Is it Shell Oil? Is that their thing?
Oddfather does the same thing. He almost always plays female characters. I always kill Lydia because she gets in my way.
I don't know. It's whatever. I always make big boob characters, but
wait, but then Lydia suddenly appeared earlier. I thought that I had killed her.
I just like, I don't know. I like playing female. I like female characters in video games. So.
My face is swollen.
Aside from like Kratos, and God of War and stuff like that, that's one of those staples. I don't know.
All right, so I need to move this forward. There we go. The Red Death had long devastated the country. No pestilence had ever been so fatal. Why?
I think he said something, Angie, earlier, he said something about getting Patron.
Oh, he's going to go grab some beers. He'll be right back.
Yeah. He's not ignoring anybody. I think he just went off to get some beers.
Heidi Haug.
Actually, there's a Norwegian country singer who has made it his international career. There's actually a lot of outlaw country singers from Norway, and there's a good.
There's one from Poland.
Yeah. There's
that I like in particular.
Carl. A lot of the black metal guys.
What does that smell?
I don't know. I think someone's burning shit outside. So a lot of the black metal guys, they love country, and they have side careers as country singers. Like no joke.
Well, like Nergal.
Yeah, Nergal from Behemoth.
Me and that man. Well, it's kind of bluesy.
It's blues. It's outlaw country. It's
like really.
It's straight up outlaw country. And he's from Poland.
I like the one that it's called.
Well, the name of the band is Me and That Man.
Sidriljak, which is My Church is Black.
Yeah.
In Polish, I guess I say it wrong.
Yeah, look, Carl, check out Me and That Man.
You might actually like it.
I think you'll like it. I know.
Maybe not the church burning one, but
okay. There's a reason for that song. It's not as in like I'm gonna go burn all churches. He's talking about
burning churches.
The premise of the song is the molestation within the Catholic Church and stuff like that. And so
yeah.
And he's Polish, and the Catholic Church is the state religion in Poland. So.
Amazon show. Oh, amazing show. Thank you.
Show.
I'm on Amazon?
We actually are on Amazon.
Oh, we are. No, I haven't filled out everything yet.
Oh, we're not on Amazon yet.
All right, so
on to the story.
The Red Death long devastated the country. No pestilence had ever been so fatal or so hideous. Blood was its avatar and its seal. The redness of the horror of blood. There were sharp pains and sudden dizziness, then profuse bleeding at the pores with disillusion. The scarlet stains upon the body and especially upon the face of the victim were the pest ban ooh, which shut him out from the aid and from the sympathy of his fellow men. And the whole seizure, progress, and termination of the disease were the incidents of half an hour. But the Prince Prospero was happy and dauntless and sagacious.
Angie, real fast, who's BTMX?
Yes, I have been wanting to work with you guys. I'm
Oh.
going. I'm going back to being off on Fridays as of next week.
What's BTMX?
The guy that did the metal shows, he keeps asking to host, but it's always during a time that I can't.
Oh,
He keeps asking me to co-host, I should say.
okay. Private message is one of us.
Dorothy is the guy's wife.
Okay. Private.
She's amazing. She has private messaged me
Okay.
multiple times.
We'll private message you and we'll set something up. We can even do stuff through Psycho Bunny and Psycho Manty. I mean, we can bring you guys on here because we have StreamYard and all
We've
that stuff.
actually been wanting to hit you up and talk to you a little bit about
Yeah. We have Sid from
because they do a lot of stuff. They do a whole show that involves like the Juggalo stuff, and then they have a whole show that involves metal.
Oh, okay.
And it's gosh, can you please type in what it means again? It was break the mold radio. Break the mold.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. We'll get in contact. Right.
You are correct, and it was done on purpose. See, we're gonna get on that tangent again.
Here we go.
Don't get me on a tangent again.
The
Okay,
1%
so
of the population of Norway or Scandinavia is like Christian. The rest of them are still pagans, practicing pagans.
but the Prince Prospero was happy and dauntless and sagacious.
Cool. Yeah.
Definitely.
We'll talk to you.
When his dominions were half depopulated, he summoned to his presence 1,000 hale and light-hearted friends from among the knights and dames of his court, and with these retired to the deep seclusion of one of his castellated abbeys. This was an extensive and magnificent structure, the creation of the prince's own eccentric yet august taste. A strong and lofty wall girdled in it. This wall had gates of iron. The courtiers, having entered, brought furnaces and massy hammers and welded the bolts. They resolved to leave means neither of ingress or egress to the sudden impulse of despair or of frenzy from within. The abbey was amply provisioned. With such precautions, the courtiers might bid defiance to contagion. The external world could take care of itself. In the meantime, it was folly to grieve or to think. The prince had provided all of the appliances of pleasure. There were buffoons. There were improvisatory improv people, actors. There were ballet dancers. There were musicians. There was beauty. There was wine. All these and security within. Without was the Red Death. It was toward the close of the 5th or 6th months of seclusion, and while the pestilence raged most furiously abroad, the Prince Prospero entertained his 1,000 friends at a masked ball of the most unusual magnificence. It was a voluptuous scene, that masquerade, but first let me tell of the rooms in which it was held. There were 7. An imperial suite and many palaces, however, such suites form a long and straight vista, while the folding doors slide back nearly to the walls on either hand, so that the view of the whole extent was scarcely impeded. Here, the case was very different. It might have been expected from the Duke's love of the bazaar. The apartments were so irregularly disposed that the vision embraced but little more than one at a time. There was a sharp turn at oh god. There was a sharp turn at every 20 or 30 yards, and at each turn a novel effect. To the right and the left, in the middle of each wall, a tall, narrow Gothic window looked out upon the closed corridor which pursued the windings of the suite. These windows were stained glass whose color varied in accordance with the prevailing hue of the decorations of the chamber into which it opened. At or that at the eastern extremity was hung, for an example, in the blue, the vividly blue were its and vividly blue were its windows. The second chamber was purple, and its ornaments and tapestries, and here the panes were purple. The third was green throughout, and so were the casements. Fourth was furnished with and lit with orange. The fifth with white. The sixth with violet. The seventh apartment was closely shrouded in black velvet tapestries that hung all over the ceiling and down the walls, falling in heavy folds upon the carpet of the same material and hue. But in this chamber only, the color of the window failed the correspondence with decorations. The panes were scarlet, a deep blood red color. Now, in no one of the seven apartments were there any lamp or candelabrum. Amid the profusion of gold ornaments that lay scattered to and fro, or depended from the roof, there was no light of any kind emanating from lamp or candle within the suite of chambers. But in the corridors that followed the suite, there stood opposite of each window a heavy tripod bearing a brazier of fire that protected its rays through the tent or projected its rays through the tinted glass, so glaringly illuminating the room. And thus were produced a multitude of gaudy and fantastic appearances. But in the western or the black chamber, the effect of the firelight that streamed upon the dark hangings through the blood tinted panes was ghastly in the extreme, and produced so wild a look upon the countenance of those who entered, that there were few of the company bold enough to set foot in its precincts at all. It was in this apartment also that there stood against the western wall a gigantic clock of ebony. Its pendulum swung to and fro with a dull, heavy, monotonous clang. And when the minute hand made the circuit of the face and the hour had to be stricken, there came from the brazen lungs of the clock a sound which was clear and loud and deep and extremely musical, but so peculiar a note and an emphasis that at each lapse of an hour the musicians of the orchestra were constrained to pause momentarily in their performance to hearken to the sound. And thus the waltzers' performance ceased their evolutions, and there was a brief disconcert of the whole gay company. And while the chime of the clock yet rang, it was observed that the giddiest grew pale, and the more aged and sedate passed their hands over their brows, as if in confused reverie or meditation. But when the echoes had fully ceased, and the light laughter at once pervaded the assembly, the musicians looked at each other and smiled as if their own nervousness and folly, and, and made whispering vows, each to the other, that the new chiming of the clock would produce in them no similar emotions. And then, after the lapse of 60 minutes, which embraced 3,600 seconds of the time that flies, there came yet another chime of the clock, and then were the same disconcert and tremulousness. Thank you. Cannot get that word out of my mouth. Tremulousness and meditation as before. But in spirit of these things, it was a gay and magnificent revel. The tastes of the Duke were peculiar. He had a fine eye for colors and effects. He disregarded the decora of mere fashion. His plans were bold and fiery. His concepts glowed with barbaric luster. There were some who would have thought of him mad. His followers felt that he was not. It was necessary to hear and see and touch him and be sure that he was not. He had directed in great part the movable embellishments of the seven chambers upon occasion of this feat, and it was his own guiding taste which had given character to the masqueraders. Be sure they were grotesque. They were much glare and glitter and piquancy and phantasm, much of what has been since seen as Hernani. There was arabesque figures arabesque figures with unsuited limbs and appointments. There were delicious fancies, such as the madman fashions. There was such of the beauties, much of the wanton, much of the bizarre, something of the terrible, and not a little of that which might have excited disgust. To and fro in seven chambers there stalked, in fact, a multitude of dreams, and these, the dreams, writhed in and about, taking hue from the rooms, and causing the wild music of the orchestra to seem to echo of their steps. And anon there strikes the ebony clock which stands in the hall of the velvet, and then for a moment all is still, and all is silent, save the voice of the clock. The dreams are stiff frozen as they stand, but the echoes of the chime die away. They have endured but an instant, and the light, half subdued, laughter flows after them, and they depart. And now again the music swells and the dreams live, and the ride to and fro more merrily than ever, taking hue from the many tinted windows through which stream rays from the tripods. But to the chamber which lies most westwardly of the seven, there were now none of the maskers who venture. For the night is wanting away, and there flows a ruddier light through the blood-colored panes, and the blackness of the sable drapery appalls. And to him whose foot falls upon the sable carpet, there comes from the near clock of ebony a muffled peal, more solemnly apathetic than any which reaches their ears who indulge in the more remote gaieties gaieties of their apartments. But these other apartments were densely crowded, and in them beat feverishly the heart of life, and the revel went wiringly on, until at length there commenced the sound of midnight upon the clock, and the music ceased, and as I have told, the evolutions of the waltzers were quieted, and there was an uneasy sensation of all things as before. But now there were 12 strokes to be sounded by the bell of the clock, and thus it happened, perhaps, that more of thought crept, with more of time, into the meditations of the thoughtful among those who revelled. And thus, too, it happened, perhaps, that before the last echo of the last chime had utterly sunk into silence, there were many individuals in the crowd who had found leisure to become aware of the presence of a masked figure which had arrested the attention of no single individual before. And the rumor of this new presence having spread itself whisperingly around, there arose at length from the whole company a buzz or a murmur expressive of disapprobation and surprise, then finally of terror and horror and disgust. In an assembly of phantasms such as I have painted, it may well be supposed that no ordinary appearance could have excited such a sensation. In truth, the masquerade license of the night was nearly unlimited, but the figure in question had out Heroded Herod, and gone beyond the bounds of even the prince's indefinite decorum. There are chords in the heart of the most reckless which cannot be touched without emotion. Even with the utterly lost to whom life and death are equally jest, there are matters of which no jest can be made. The whole company, indeed, seemed now deeply to feel that in the costume of bearing of the stranger, neither wit nor propriety existed. The figure was tall and gaunt, and shrouded from head to toe in habiliments of the grave. He was wearing the clothing of the dead. The mask which concealed the visage was made so nearly to resemble the countenance of a stiffened corpse that the closest scrutiny must have difficulty in detecting the cheat. And yet, all this might have been endured if not approved by the mad revelers around. But the murmur had gone so far as to assume the type of the Red Death. His visage was dabbled in blood. His broad brow, with all the features of its face, was sprinkled with scarlet horror. When the eyes of the Prince Prospero fell upon this special image, which, with a slow and solemn moment, as if more fully to sustain the role, stalked to and fro among the waltzers, he was seen to be convulsed. In the first moment with the strong shudder, either of terror or disaster, but in the next his brow reddened with rage. "Who dares," he demanded hoarsely of the courtiers who stood near him, "who dares insult us with this blasphemous mockery? Seize him and unmask him, that we may know whom we have to hang at sunrise from the battlements." It was in the eastern or blue chamber in which stood Prince Prospero as he uttered these words. They rang through the 7 rooms loudly and clearly, for the prince was bold and robust, and the music had become hushed at the waving of his hand. It was in the blue room where stood the prince, with a group of pale courtiers by his side, or courtiers. At first he spoke. There was a slight rush movement of his group in the direction of the intruder, who at the moment was also near at hand, and now, with deliberate and steady step, made closer approach to the speaker. But from a certain nameless awe with which the mad assumptions of the murmur had inspired the whole party, there were found none who put forth a hand to seize him, so that unimpeded he passed within a yard of the prince's person, and while the vast assembly, as if with one impulse, shrank from the centers of the room to the walls, he made his way uninterrupted, but with the same solemn and measured step which had distinguished him from the first, through the blue chamber to the purple, through the purple to the green, through the green to the orange, through this again to the white, and even thence to the violet, ere a decided movement had been made to arrest him. It was then, however, hold on, you just distracted me. It was then, however, that Prince Prospero, maddening with rage and the shame of his own momentary cowardice, rushed hurriedly through the 6 chambers, while none followed him on account of the deadly terror that had seized upon all. He bore aloft a drawn dagger and approached in rapid impetuosity, Ugh. To within 3 or 4 feet of the retreating figure. When the latter, having attained the extremity of the velvet apartment, turned suddenly and confronted his pursuer. There was a sharp cry, and the dagger dropped, gleaming upon the sable carpet, upon which instant afterwards fell prostrate death the Prince Prospero. Then summoning the wild courage of despair, a throng of the revelers at once threw themselves into the black apartment and seizing the murmur, whose tall figure stood erect and motionless within the shadow of the ebony clock, gasped in unutterable horror at finding the grave cerements and corpse-like mask which they handled with so violent rudeness and untenanted by any tangible form. And now was acknowledged the presence of the Red Death. He had come like the thief in the night, and one by one dropped the revelers in the blood-bedewed halls of their revel, and died each in the despairing posture of his fall. And in the life of the ebony clock went out with that of the last of the gay. And the flames of the tripods expired, and the darkness and decay, and the Red Death held illimitable dominion over all. That was it. That was a difficult one to read, especially because the flex roll kicked in halfway through.
And we're going to call it a night.
We're going to call it a night because flex roll just kicked in, and I can kind of move my neck.
So tomorrow night's going to be Natalie.
Ooh, it's going to be a really cool show tomorrow night.
What's it going to be?
The Pied Piper.
The true story behind the Pied Piper, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
And then
Thursday, Kelly, where the hell are you?
we don't know what's going on Thursday.
Somebody should be seeing me.
Yep.
Friday, we have Sid.
Friday and Saturday, we're off.
And then this is the 1 week we are taking off. That's why we did tonight. We made sure to do tonight, even though we canceled yesterday. We were going to actually make yesterday our night for cooking and stuff, but I fell asleep.
Yep.
So, hello, Rebecca. I know I was totally like engrossed in the book the entire time and didn't really look up. So hello to anybody that I missed. Look up Midsummer Poll. We dance around it every midsummer.
Yeah.
I actually do know that. One hint, Freya. I wish Freya was in here with us right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun tomorrow.
Yeah.
We are going to be off. You know what? Put up Carl's too. And yes, Thursday is Stray Hairs. Yay!
Yay.
And then so Saturday you have a break from us, but I believe Sid's still on for us.
Yeah.
And Sunday we will be back with Roots Play Red. Finishing up Gacy. Hopefully I'm not stoned next time.
Yeah.
Let's be real, I probably will be.
We got a little buzzed.
Well, I have my muscle relaxers now, so I'm probably not going to be drinking or anything like that.
Yeah.
You can't mix that shit.
We don't normally go on this late.
I'm tired. Flex roll kicked in halfway through the Mask of the Red Death. It got difficult there for a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't see.
All right.
So...
That should cover everything. But yeah, we're taking off.
Yeah, we're going to do, not really honeymoon, our anniversary celebration.
Yeah.
You
can't.
You can't mix the flex roll with the other stuff.
I know.
I can almost move my neck.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm actually going into physical therapy for my neck. I'm actually kind of shocked. This is what happens when you own a mastiff that thinks that she's like this big.
Yeah, pretty much.
No big deal. Super excited. Gonna get this taken care of. Hopefully they have a pool. And then yeah, looking forward to some chiropractic.
Yep.
So again, have a wonderful night. We will see you next week. Actually, we're going to do the band book club on its normal night, which is Monday.
And we'll see you Sunday for Roots Bleed Red.
And we will see you Sunday for Roots Bleed Red. Yeah, next week I guess I could do I could do the whole Pit and the Pendulum.
Yeah.
Because it's only a few pages. It was like the same amount as the Oval Portrait along with the Mask of the Red Death.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you everybody for joining.
Yay, happy anniversary.
Thank you. And thank you.
Yay.
It's always green hearts for my green hair.
Yeah. All right, guys.
Oh, where is Applewhite speaking? Okay. This one?
I don't know. Could be. Yes.
Bye.
This is Mr. Applewhite speaking. Do not attempt to adjust your device. There is nothing wrong with it. I am here to deliver a message. Join Psycho Bunny Death Cult in our anti-censorship campaign. Free your mind. Free your head. I don't know, set the world on fire. I don't know what's wrong, baby.